So since I picked up my first ever iPhone, the 15 Pro, around the start of this year, it has slowly helped to revive my love for photography. And right now, out of all of the cameras and lenses that I own, the iPhone is without a doubt my go-to camera for street photography and honestly any other type of photography that I want to do for myself for a few key reasons. But I will get to those in a second. First, I want to give you some context so that you can better understand where I'm coming from with all of the stuff that I'm going to talk about. A lot of you might not know this, but even though I mainly talk about video related stuff on this channel, whether it's filmmaking or video editing, I have had a huge love for photography ever since I bought my first camera. And fun fact, I got my first ever camera, which was a Sony a6000, with the intention of mainly learning about photography. But because I already had a background in video editing for like 7 or 8 years before getting my first camera, I kind of started gravitating more towards the video side of things pretty quickly. But still, while I was trying to learn how to make somewhat decent looking images with my camera, what I made was a pretty even split of videos and photos. I tried all kinds of photography like landscape, portrait, product, astrophotography, architecture, food, everything. But the type of photography that really stuck around with me and that I enjoyed the most was street photography. And there was a period of time where I actively went out and I tried to do as much of that as I could in my free time. I would go out, take some photos around my city, come back home, edit them, hate them, go out again, take them again, but a little better this time, and rinse and repeat. And I loved it. It was great. But what I was mostly doing for work was still video related. And the more I worked on video projects, the less time I set aside for photography. And something that actually made me kind of sad was not too long ago, maybe around the start of 2024, I realized that over the past few years, I have barely taken any photos for myself. And I don't mean like photos of moments I wanted to remember with friends and family. I took a bunch of those. What I mean is I didn't take any photos like the ones that I talked about a second ago that I actually felt excited about and wanted to share with people, or just like print out for myself and hang them on a wall or something. Not only that, but throughout 2023, I didn't just take few photos for myself, I didn't take any like that. On my hard drive, on my computer, in the photography folder, there is no subfolder for 2023 at all. I did take photos here and there for some client stuff, but nothing for me. And that realization kind of just sucked, you know? Because I had to face the fact that there was this thing that brought me a lot of joy as a creator that I just didn't do anymore. Now, right around the time when I noticed this was when I picked up the iPhone 15 Pro. And the funny thing is, I got it as obviously like an everyday device, but when it comes to more pro use cases, I got it for video because it shoots great video. But I also started taking photos with it here and there, and I quickly noticed something happen. I was not only having fun taking photos with my phone, which I'm sure some grumpy pro photographers are gonna shake their fist at me for, but I was actually making photos that I was happy with. And the more I thought about it, the more I started figuring out why I actually stopped taking photos. When I think back to the time when I got my first camera, I remember one specific thing very clearly. I remember how it gave me this weird sense of novelty in places around my city that I had seen hundreds of times before. Because now I had a new way of looking at them through my camera. And then when I would get a new lens, that would also contribute to the sense of novelty because I was not only looking at a familiar place through my camera, but I was also now looking at it through a new lens that's much different than the one from a week or a few weeks ago. And for a while, that alone was enough to motivate me to take photos. Every now and then I would travel somewhere else outside of my city and see new stuff, and that would also help. But at some point, point, that feeling of novelty kind of started wearing off, and I would find myself putting my camera and an extra lens in my backpack, going out with the intention of taking photos, but just not bothering to take it out at all. Like, I might see something that kind of catches my eye, but unless I found it really interesting, I didn't feel like it was worth the effort of setting my camera bag down and getting my camera just to take a photo that would probably end up being mediocre, at least in my mind. But with the iPhone, that point of friction isn't there. I already reach for it in my pocket a bunch of times a day while I'm out to call someone or text someone or look at maps or literally anything else. And the fact that it has such a great camera on it means that I can snap a quick photo even of something that seems mediocre because it takes barely any effort. And not only that, but you know how people say that the best camera is the one that's with you? Well, this is the camera that, for better or worse, is literally always with me. And this is something that I'm absolutely aware of, but there is one specific photo that I will throw on screen that made this idea click in my head on a whole different level. It was a photo that I took of my girlfriend's cat one time when we were just hanging out doing nothing. I saw the cat on the windowsill and I thought, oh, that's cute and looks kind of cool. So I picked up my phone that was next to me and I just snapped a quick shot, not thinking much of it. But when I did a bit of editing to the photo and looked at it, I was like, wait, hold up, I really like this. I showed it to my girlfriend and the way she reacted looked and genuinely felt like she liked it a lot. And this might sound a little weird, but that gave me this sense of joy that I remembered from back in the day when I would take photos more often. And a little while after that, I realized that if it wasn't for my phone being right next to me and being as capable as it is, I wouldn't have taken that photo because I didn't have any other camera with me. And that moment right there helped to remind me that different tools fit different situations. Just like how, for me personally, the FX30 is the most convenient whenever I want to get the best possible footage I can for a project, or how my A6400 is what I find most convenient when recording these YouTube videos. I think that with where I am right now creatively, the iPhone offers me the most convenient workflow for taking photos that I enjoy. It's quicker and simpler than doing it with any of the other cameras and lenses I own, and that is worth a lot to me personally. I think this is definitely one of those cases where less is more. With an iPhone, I don't have to worry about bringing a separate bag with batteries, lenses, or just like worrying about it hanging around my shoulder in general. There's also less friction so that I'm able to capture even more uninteresting moments just in case they actually turn out to be something great when I have a look later. And also something else that helps is people tend to ignore you when you're taking photos with a phone much more compared to when you're doing it with like a proper camera. And for something like street photography, that can actually be really useful. But beyond anything else, whether or not I can explain why, I just enjoy it. Now, I should clarify, I'm not saying that from now on I'll only be taking photos on my phone. But over these last few months, I've realized that a simpler workflow with less friction is exactly what I've needed to spark my passion for photography again. So if there's one piece of advice I can leave you with, it would be that every now and then, it's a good idea to stop and think about where you currently are creatively and what sort of issues you're dealing with in your workflow. And then you should look at all of the gear that's available to you and really focus on finding the pieces that can solve those issues most effectively. Because if there's one main thing that I've learned from this experience of simplifying my photography process by just using my phone, it's that sometimes the best piece of gear spec-wise isn't necessarily the best for absolutely every situation. And there are cases where something that's much simpler and is definitely not the best thing that you own can do a much better job. Alright, so that is all I've got, but if you made it until the end of this video, I genuinely appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one.